In the biting stillness of a winter morning, a lone biker stood over a gravestone, his trembling hands pressed against the cold marble as if trying to bring it back to life. His breath shook, his eyes swollen from sleepless nights, and the world around him felt unbearably quiet. Every day at this hour, this was the moment that broke him, kneeling at the grave of the woman he believed he'd failed. What he didn't know was that only a few steps behind him, half hidden by an old oak tree, the woman he mourned, Emily Brooks, stood alive. She watched the man she once loved fall apart, piece by piece. If you believe in second chances, in kindness, and in the kind of love that refuses to die, hit that like button, share this story, and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Liam Carter, known in his club as Iron, had always been a mountain of a man, strong, loyal, and fearless on the open road. But here, in this quiet cemetery, he was just a broken husband. His brothers in the Reaper's Sons motorcycle club had seen the change over the last 8 months. He rarely spoke, barely rode, and sometimes disappeared for days, returning with that hollow, faraway stare of a man who'd seen the end of the world, and maybe he had. Because Emily wasn't just his wife. She was the one person who brought peace to a man who had spent his whole life chasing chaos. Losing her felt like losing himself. What Liam never knew was that Emily hadn't truly died. 8 months ago, on a storm-soaked night, she'd been caught in a violent ambush meant for him. Liam's enemies ran deep, deeper than Emily ever understood. When the police realized just how dangerous his world was, they forced her into a witness protection program. It was supposed to save her. It was supposed to be temporary. It was supposed to give them a way back to each other. But life doesn't follow promises, and bureaucracy moves slow. The truth got buried under red tape, threats, and silence. Emily begged to contact him, begged to let him know she was alive. But every request was denied, until yesterday. For the first time in months, Emily slipped away from her handlers and followed the familiar path to the cemetery, the only place she knew he'd be. She imagined running to him, wrapping her arms around the man she never stopped loving. But when she saw him kneeling there, broken, whispering her name like a prayer, her knees nearly gave out. She couldn't move, couldn't speak. The guilt hit harder than any danger she'd faced hiding away all those months. Liam leaned down and placed a single red rose on the grave, a ritual he'd repeated every day since the funeral the system forced him to attend. His shoulders trembled as he whispered apologies she could barely catch. He blamed himself. He believed he hadn't protected her, and that belief had been eating him alive. Emily wanted to scream his name, to tell him she was alive, but fear froze her. Not fear of the men who wanted her dead, but fear of what her return might do to him. Would he forgive her? Or would he hate her for letting him grieve her for so long? The next morning, something in the air shifted. Liam woke before dawn, heavy-hearted but determined. Today, he'd made a decision. He couldn't keep living like this. His brothers worried. His spirit was fading. He whispered Emily's name one last time, promising he'd try to move forward, even if it meant rebuilding himself piece by piece. But as he turned to walk away, he heard it, soft footsteps, a quiet breath behind him. He turned, expecting to see another mourner. And then he saw her. A woman stood a few paces away, thin, pale, wrapped in a long dark coat. Her hair danced in the cold breeze, and her eyes, God, those eyes, were the same ones that had haunted his dreams every night. Emily, his breath caught, his knees wobbled. Reality blurred. For a moment, he thought grief had finally taken what little sanity he had left. But then she took a step forward, tears spilling down her cheeks, her lips trembling as she whispered his name, a voice he thought he'd never hear again. Liam didn't move. Couldn't. He stood frozen as the impossible unfolded before his eyes. Then suddenly, the dam broke. He stumbled toward her, not like a tough biker, but like a man whose heart had finally found its missing piece. She explained everything, not perfectly, but through trembling hands and tear-soaked words. The danger, the hiding, the sleepless nights. Liam listened in silence, afraid that if he reached for her, she'd vanish again. But when he finally wrapped his arms around her, the world seemed to realign. Every shattered piece inside him locked back into place. He didn't care about the danger or the lies. He only cared that she was here, alive, breathing. The reunion wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a different fight. Emily's return meant facing new threats and hard choices. The men who wanted her gone were still out there. But Liam wasn't the same man he'd been 8 months ago. Pain had carved strength into him, and his brothers in the Reapers were ready to protect her with their lives. And Emily, after months of fear and isolation, had found a courage she never knew she had. They weren't who they used to be. They were something more. Two souls rebuilt by loss and reunited by love that refused to die. As they walked out of the cemetery for the first time together, Liam holding her hand like a lifeline, the morning sun broke through the clouds. It felt like the world itself was finally exhaling. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Before you go, answer this. What would you do if someone you loved showed up alive right in front of you? Because sometimes life gives back what it takes, just not how we expected, and never without testing how deeply we can love.